A week after RT dropped one of their Derry correspondents, we've got two this weekend: Gerard O'Kane, GL columnist, and Paul McFlynn, ex-Derry player. Welcome to Take Your Points. This week we're going to talk about the All-Ireland final. Dublin won it 5 in a row, made history. And I wanted to get your thoughts, Gerard, because in last week's Gaelic Life you said that the key that Kerry had to do was to play Tommy Walsh. That was what they had to do to stand up to Dublin. And it worked for a period.
Well, in the replay, I found it strange that they held him as long as they did, and then whenever he did eventually come on, a lot of the ball that he received, Tommy was running out towards the Hogan stand or running out towards the Cusack stand, running away from goal, facing towards the sideline when he picked up the ball, as opposed to the first 10 minutes of the game, where Kerry had some sort of aerial bombardment on the Dublin defence, kicked in 3, maybe 4 high balls. Between Johnny Cooper and Cluxton, they're maybe sweeping them up, and if you look at the first 3, Dublin end up scoring not 3 out of counter attacks from them, and that's maybe more the type of ball that Tommy would have suited, as opposed to running out towards the Cusack stand with his back to goal, or even the ball that they played a lot in Tyrone and the drawn final, where they talked about his experience in Aussie rules. He talks about taking the lead, where he came out around the D and he was there ready for a bouncing ball under his chest, which he's very comfortable in taking. None of that transpired, but I think holding him to the 55th minute, whenever they were 3 or 4 down at that stage, and Dublin having 15 men this time, made a bit of a difference, as opposed to bringing them on the 53rd or 54th minute in the drawing game when they had an extra man.
At any stage did you think Dublin weren't going to win the match?
I'll be honest, no. Obviously the game turned when Merchant scored the goal 10 seconds into the second half. I think as equally important was on the restart, Dublin kicked a point. You know, if you're involved in football teams, you always say if a team scores a goal, you try and get the next score, because it makes it a 2-point swing instead of a 4-point swing. Dublin scored a point in the restart and they were 4 points up within a minute and 20 seconds. And after that, with the 15 men, they're always likely to control the game, and I think they controlled it pretty comfortably at that point.
What impressed you, Paul, about Dublin on Saturday?
Well, I suppose just the forward play. It was well highlighted in the first game that O'Callaghan and Mannion and Kieran Kilkenny were sort of held well in those games, and anyone got into the replay was saying, look, if these guys click, you can only see one winner, and that did transpire. I think those 3 kicked 4 points each from play, and Dean Rock, who was quiet in comparison to the previous day, but he still kicked nod 2 and swung over that 45 at the end. So it was their forward play. And at the beginning, it was a great first half to witness it 10-all. As a spectator watching that, it was phenomenal. You'd have been looking at any youngster to look at that and say, look, this is how you play football, this is how you want to inspire someone to play football. But the longer the game went on, and as we spoke about in all the analysts were talking about the fact that it was sort of like attack, both sides. With Dublin's conditioning, you can only do that for so long, and I do think Kerry tired as well to an extent. So when Gerard was making the point there about Tommy Walsh coming in, I think the timing of it just was wrong, and these things work for you. One day the game takes on a different complexion the second day, and it just got away from them at that particular point, you know. It's
odd that they tired, but Kerry would be regarded as younger of the two teams.
But it's the conditioning. You look at the physique, and I suppose everybody's been well highlighted, but you looked at that, there was a photo floating around, I think, on Twitter of Conor O'Callaghan, and someone saying, compare him to when he was eating Cocoa Pops to porridge, and the difference in him in 2 years is just phenomenal, really. When you look at him, his ability to win his own ball, but that burst of pace that he has, that explosive pace and power that he has, and if you watch him, he gets the big hand up. There's always a hand goes up to give him that yard or two. And what also makes him extremely difficult then is the fact that he's two-footed. If you look at Kilkenny and him and Clifford, they're all two-footed. So players always back off them because they don't know. Whereas if you've got a forward and he's one-footed, you have a fair idea what way he's going to move. And if you've done your homework and watched him in video, you can push him down a particular avenue. Whereas with those guys, it's different. So that conditioning that they have and that relentless work that they've done over X number of years, I think Kerry will eventually get there. And they are catching them up in that conditioning stakes. But youth counts for a lot, but the conditioning of those Dublin fellas is frightening. All you do is look at Kieran Kilkenny in that interview when he put up his fist to say we're going to party. I mean, it's scary.
He's a big lad.
Yeah.
He's a big lad.
Yeah.
He knows how to eat his breakfast. What can Ulster teams do though? How far behind are everybody else to those two?
suppose from the outside looking in, you would have to say a fair distance. There's been a lot of talk, obviously, about the finance that's thrown at Dublin and all the rest. And whilst the finance doesn't do everything for you, I still think to cope in the modern era and in the game, you need access to X number of pounds. And I think I had a chat with Kieran McGeeney there not so long ago, and he was talking about the fact about the work he was doing with Armagh, and he was talking about the financial input that you need. And he's saying that in Ulster teams, he says, let's be fair, he says it's going to come around for Ulster teams now maybe once every 10 years. There's a chance. He says, in the early 90s, it was there, you had a chance all the time. So I think to actually close the gap, the Ulster teams have to invest even more, if that's possible, if it's out there. And I think that gap is appearing. We thought perhaps you would close the gap, but it would appear with Dublin and Kerry, I think at the minute they're definitely the two teams that are way ahead of everybody else.
Gerard, would you agree in that analysis? Investment's what needed, and can that bring Ulster teams closer?
In terms of Ulster teams, as Paul said, I don't know it. And as I said, it might come around a one every 10-year cycle. Like Tyrone have been now in 4 semi-finals in 5 years, and to me they don't look any closer to one than All Ireland. Donegal have won the last 2 Ulsters, and they've blazed through Ulster, and you're watching them saying these are the team to beat Dublin, and then they haven't got the Super 8s in both the years. Different reasons. I know they had different injuries with McBrearty one year and Owen Gallagher this year, but if one of the other teams gets them injuries, they're sort of able to absorb it and move on, either change the way they play or bring someone else in. But I don't think any of the Ulster teams will be able to close the gap anytime soon. Now they can invest all the money and all the Ulster teams will get better as a result, and maybe bring Ulster football onwards. I think that's what Bantley's obviously done on Monaghan. Whenever you see the backroom team he's assembled, and he's made it quite clear that that's what he's trying to do. But in terms of getting closer to probably Kerry and Dublin, I think that they're all a fair way off. I think Mayo's maybe sort of on the way down. I sort of listened to some of their players talking, Chris Barrett talked there one day about coming home after 1 a.m. trains in Mayo and stuff. Dublin don't have that, that disadvantage, even geographically, no matter about the finances. Players are and out to train in a couple of hours, done and dusted, And even with things like that, over the course of a year, you add in the 20 hours in the car you're spending a week. By 20 weeks, it's 400 hours just, and it's probably a lot more than that. That's what counties like Dublin aren't absorbing.
So with all that in mind, and the news this week that the restructure in the GAA, the Tier 2 system is going to go forward at Congress, they're going to vote on it, where they'll have the provincial winners will get through into the all qualifiers, but all the Division 3 and 4 teams will play a Tier 2 competition. How does that help Ulster teams and everybody else? Will it help them?
I don't think it does, to be honest. Obviously the league in the earliest part of the season is a priority for most teams, and the likes of Derry and Down are in the same league, so they'll be aiming their league to get up. And in Division 4, Antrim will be, if Antrim lose the first 2 league games, especially if they're against the teams that they're going to be competing against to get up out of Division 4, that's their league over nearly. So games 3 through to 7 or 8, they're just sort of riding it out until they come to an Ulster Championship draw. The luck of the draw this year pitted them against Tyrone. So really, what was Antrim's season to play for after they beaten the first 2 league games? And if it's now a chance of going into what is a second tier, I think it holds a lot of unknowns just for any team in it. I know that the GAA probably are coming at it with good intentions, and John Horn said from day one his mandate was make it more competitive across the board, bring in a second tier, but people are so split on it. I spoke to Lenny Harbison, and he's been on record in the paper saying we have to be playing Tier 2, and yet I've yet to read Kevin O'Boyle, Patrick McBride, and there was another one of Antrim players saying that they wouldn't play in a Tier 2. So if you a manager of one team saying it, but the players of the same team are saying different, it's causing a lot of division even within that camp. So I don't know whether a player would say, well, I'm not giving up my next 5, 6, 7 months to play in a Tier 2. And it might, I think it definitely will help the drop off in terms of players going to America in the summer. You'll see it on the rise again.
Mm-hmm. Paul, I sat in this room with Shane Elliott, our hurling columnist, and Cal Carville, the other columnist from Armagh. Both have said they can't see why footballers continue to want to play in the All-Ireland series when hurling are happily playing in a tiered system, 3 and 4 tiers. You don't agree? I presume you don't agree with a tier 2 system, or do you?
No, I don't. But look, it is difficult because you hear different opinions out there. And when you retire now, it's different. But when I was still playing for Derry, would you have wanted to play in tier 2? No way. And I see Gerard's point. And because the clubs as well, you've got a lot of players there who are thinking about to themselves, we might win a club championship this year. And they don't like the prospect of playing in a tier 2. They're going to invest their efforts in with the club and not put them fully in behind the county, when the whole purpose of a tier 2 is to make them develop and improve to get up to that level. So it may not work for certain counties, but you do have certain managers in certain counties, particularly in Division 4, saying that it's needed, because they go into provincial championship, they take a hammering. They maybe go into the qualifiers and they end up meeting a strong team who's exited at the first round of a provincial championship, and they take another hammering. So it's not great for confidence levels. But ask any player, and I suppose with these new proposals, they still get a chance to play in the provincial championship. But a lot of players, that dream's still there of the Holy Grail. And whilst we know for a lot of them it's unrealistic, they still want that opportunity. And we have seen over the years counties make great progress in the qualifiers who have maybe perhaps punched above their weight. And what that has done for football in those counties, inspiring youth and giving those counties a real lift. And I don't know if that same lift can be generated through a tier 2 competition.
But I suppose having an Ulster championship there that you can play in still helps you.
Yeah, well, I think still you've got that chance of playing in provincial. So the provincial is still there, but as Gerard alluded to earlier on, so if Derry, for example, don't make the Ulster final under the new rules, well, then they can't go forward in the All-Ireland series. And I think, I suppose it's my own county, and to see them in Division 3, you think that they're better than that, and hopefully they will get out of Division 3. And for Down as well. So I think for those fellas, they would still have aspirations of competing and getting a run in the qualifiers, and they would see perhaps a run in the qualifiers and in terms of development being of more use to them down the road than competing in what they would deem to be a lesser competition.
What have you thought of the Super 8s? What's your opinion on that system?
To be honest, I've liked the Super 8s. I was a bit wary about it when it was first introduced, but I think it's went fairly well. Okay, with a few dead rubbers, but I think under the new rules they're going to avoid that. And when everybody was looking forward this year to watching Donegal and Mayo, and that did mean something in that game. Now, the flip side of that was the Tyrone and Dublin fiasco really up in Oma, but if you're managing those teams, you'd be doing what you're thinking down the line at that stage, and you can afford to think down the line. So when it got to compare those two games, everybody was looking forward to Mayo and Donegal, and the fact that Donegal hadn't lost yet, and the Super 8's not one loss put them out. So that was a great game to look forward to, but I think the new structures will help that and avoid those dead rubbers.
When you were a player, how would you have taken playing a championship which still had a back door and a dropout, a safety net?
Yeah, well, I played in the qualifiers for years, and I suppose we were the kings of qualifiers at one stage. And probably during our period, Gerard was coming in, and we played together for a few years, and he went on to play for X number. But you didn't like playing in the qualifiers. For a start, you wanted to win the provincial championship, but all too often for us, unfortunately, we never got there. And we had a great record in the qualifiers, and I played in 3 All-Ireland semi-finals, but 2 of them are through the back door route. And the momentum that it gives you, the confidence that it gives you in playing those games and winning. And we liked it, whilst we'd liked it being going through the front door. I still think it's great, and it gives you a chance to progress.
So a run of games does help. The more games you can play at that level, the better, Gerard. Yeah.
I just think it matters at what stage of development your team's at too. For the likes of Tyrone, who have an abundance of players, Tyrone have maybe 26, 27 players, and there's not a lot in there, number 16 to number 23, 24, and they can use the qualifiers to bring all them boys on. Back in Derry, whenever we were starting out, Mickey Moore came in 2003, and then he brought in a lot of young fellas, and it probably helped that team because we got in a run in 2004 through the semi-final that we played 6 games, and we went to everywhere in the country, and unfortunately Tyrone beat us in the first round. It wasn't what we aimed for, but after that we probably got a bit of luck at the draw earlier on, but we had to work our way through it, and we were playing teams with momentum. We come up against a Westmeath team managed by Paddy O'Shea, who had come through Leinster and won their first Leinster in years, and we had beat a Cavan team that had been managed by Eamon Coleman, who was doing well with them. We beat a Wexford team who had Matty Ford, who kicked 210 the day before again Offaly. All these teams were coming with momentum, but so were we. And I think the stage our team was at probably helped the development of a lot of them players a lot. So, the back door definitely does have its benefits in that.
This year's championship, at the replay there, we lost some. Well, RT decided not to have Joe Brolly on the show, which caused a lot of controversy, as he's a columnist of ours. What did you take of that? Do you think it's a mistake to lose Joe Brawley? We don't know at the moment. He's still under contract with them, and he may be back next year, but the word is that he probably won't be. Do you think they're going to lose? They lose out not having Joe?
I think they probably will. It just depends on what angle you watch a game for. So now that I'm sort of coming to the end of my career and I've been involved with teams more on a different aspect, looking at games, I would look at a game and I would sit in the first half or the second half and I'm sitting thinking, right, who's matching up who, what way the kick-out's going, can you see a style of play, that sort of way. And people say that's what we look for in analysis. But I think if you look at 80% of Irish households throughout Ireland that watch RTE, they're not sitting down to see that. They're just sitting down to maybe hear one or two sound bites about it, but I would guarantee you most of them, especially people of an older generation, and I'm talking probably not that old, are sitting down to see, I wonder what Joe's saying today. And I think RT will lose out from that basis. Obviously, Declan McBennett's come in, and Joe had a piece there a few weeks ago about Declan not being a pushover and why should he be. I don't know whether it was him made the call or someone else, but I don't think by not having Joe there that their analysis suddenly goes from there to here. I know Stephen Rochford was in the other day, and Stephen's a good analyst, but I don't know that it makes Pat Spillane any better of an analyst not having Joe there, or Colm O'Rourke or anybody else. And I suppose they're having to trade that off against Joe might come out with some comments now and again, and it's led to him having to contact people after the game, issuing apologies, and maybe it was just one apology too many for him, I think.
We're Irish, we love the rye, we love people winding up. Paul, what's your thoughts? You know him well.
I mean, listen, I had a lot of time for Joe, and I suppose he's Marmite for some people, either love him or hate him, but I think, and Gerard's right, when I would tune into the Sunday game there, and I loved the half time, so it's entertaining, and whilst at times he comes across as, he's not listening to others, or he's ramming his opinion down people's throats, but a lot of the time he just says it as it is, and sometimes people like that honesty. And whilst Gerard has alluded to it, the times he's had to issue the odd apology, but he was man enough to issue those apologies as well. There's others who might just have done that. I think the entertainment value, I think RTE is not going to fold because Joe Brawley's not there, but I still think RTE are better off with him there. And I think in the long run, I think you might see him back. I'm just not sure. You've seen the last of him, maybe a sabbatical of some sort, but I think in the long, and look, when he does analyse football, there's no one better. And you read some of his articles and bits and pieces, he is a good analyst. People would say sometimes he's got a little bit too personal at times, but that's just Joe. He's always been like that. He just says what he thinks. Sentiment doesn't come into it. He is what he is. He just doesn't hold it back, and people like that. It's raw, it's off the cuff sometimes. I like that. Some people just mightn't like it. They feel it's too personal, but he is that type of character. I mean, he's given us kidney one day, and he's one of these guys that just he will do things that other people won't do, in a sort of, say, charitable sense as well. So there's lots of good things about Joe Brawley, and I think for Joe, what Joe doesn't understand is that because of his mentality, how people take things so personally, because he doesn't. But I was having a conversation with him and I said, no, but that's, people do, Joe, they're a lot more sensitive. He just can't get over this because he's not sensitive.
He talked to the paper one day, back in about 05 or 06 with me, how I was a lovely young fella, but I'm just not cut out for county football. He says, he described me as a dog chasing a car wheel, and that if I got it, I wouldn't know what to do with the ball. That's what he said. And I was always quite confident in the ball, and I was happy with the way I was playing, but I met him 3 weeks after it, and he was as charming and as nice, and we were down in the city centre having lunch, and I had forgot completely about it, whereas when I read it, I was seething, and I was my mother wanted to give him a piece of her mind, that sort of thing. But I met him 3 weeks later, and it was just a bit of a laugh and a joke. And that's what Joe's like. And I think more so that this has come to light, I think you realise maybe people if you're taking Joe too seriously, and that's not to say he's there to be laughed at or a class clown, but if you take him too much to heart, you're probably taking him the wrong way, And I think maybe in society, there's a lot worse things going on than what Joe Brolly says in the Sunday game at half time. Really, some of the stuff we see in our TVs that, that's going on, as Joe said himself last week, it's just a game of football, it's not World War. And I think he's right to pull it across like that.
If we lose Joe Brolly on the Sunday game, then we don't have an Ulster voice, or other than Sean Cavanagh, wouldn't that be he'd be the only other one? Would that be correct?
Well, unless they go to replace him, I know, like towards the end of the year they bring in maybe a player like Michael Murphy or Conor McManus, but these boys will be playing for another 2, 3, 4 years. So other than Sean Cavanagh, there probably is no Ulster voice, and Sean doesn't seem to do any live games himself. He does the evening games, so I think you need that sort of balance within the studio as well.
So if you were to say to RT, how if you were going to say, I'm Gerard O'Kane, I want to get on, what would you? Do you think that they need more of an Ulster voice on this Sunday?
I think they do. I think, well, again, people being sensitive. I think way back when they were describing Ulster football, the defensive system that suppose Jim McGuinness was maybe brought in 2011, but even prior to that, when Tyrone adopted quite a defensive system that time against Kerry, when they were swarming the Kerry players in the 03 semi-final, they would talk that Armagh maybe started the year before, that there was this move towards more defensive style of play, how Kerry were struggling around that time to beat them and navigate their way through. And for a lot of time, Ulster football did take a lot of stick, and people were quite defensive, and I think Joe was a voice of reason on there sometimes, and he did stand up for it on occasions when Spillane and these boys would have been talking, and probably it was the same rhetoric all the time without perhaps that analysis. So I think that Ulster voice is important, and while Sean Cavanagh is there, but he wouldn't be there on live TV unless they make some changes around that. So it will be a loss in that regard.
And Sean might not defend Derry if we ever get there.
Well, I wouldn't think it. I wouldn't think it.
Although Joe didn't defend Derry much either. The other controversial issue this week, or last week, was we were contacted on Twitter about Andoon not playing in the Mageean Cup. Andoon's the amalgamated team that won the senior hurling competition last year and aren't being allowed to play in the competition. So some in the Ards feel that they are being unfairly treated because they won and they were successful. You have taught in Ballymena and Gerard, we've both went through the school system through Mara. How serious an issue do you think this is? Do you think how important is it that you have an amalgamated team there, or where do you see the problems there?
Well, look, you can understand it from the players that are part of that amalgamation. Last year they were exposed to a higher level of hurling, they had success. But the flip side of it is, I think when they beat Cross and Passion, was it in a final? So, and I did have a conversation with Joe Cassidy about this actually, and having been involved myself, I taught in St Louis Ballymena for 12 years, and you were trying to sort of make breakthroughs. I was at B level in McLaren, and you were trying to make a breakthrough with certain teams, and it's very difficult for teams to make a breakthrough when you're pulling together the top players from schools to come in, and they're a real force. And like Cross and Passion's one of the best. They went down and they won an All-Ireland B as well. So they're one of the top schools, hurling schools in Ireland, really, to an extent. And they couldn't topple them. And Joe would sort of say to me, when he gets his first years in, he's looking at his first years, and it'll be the same when you were at St Pat's, when you went in as a first year, and those boys that won McCrory stepped on stage, you said, I want to be there, and you were one of those boys who made it. So it's a real inspiring and motivating factor for boys in schools. And extracurricular sport is also a real pull for schools now, because yes, the academic side of things is important, but parents are very much into now the holistic development of children and getting out of it as much as they can. It's those extras that people now realise, employers now realise, and parents realise that those are the extras that are going to get them on in life, not just the results. So when Joe said to me, look, those first years came in, that's what they were looking at, was we want to win a Mageean, we want to get there, they get through. And he said if that Andoon team hadn't been there, they would have won it, and the other schools would have agreed. So I just, to be honest with you, I wouldn't be in favour of amalgamating teams. And the other side of it was you had that Cahir Derry team as well. We're playing in McLaren this year, and look, there'll be people watching this saying that's all well and good, but if your child's at a particular school and the hurling of the football is not just as strong as it could be, and they're a real standout player. But I think, look, schools football is great. But look, if you're at a club, you're getting a lot of football outside of school. All right, and it is extracurricular. It's brilliant to be playing it, but if you happen to go to a school and it's not just there, that's just part and parcel of it. So I think the amalgamated teams, it does really take away an effect. And whilst that Derry team didn't win it, but they obviously got to a final and knocked out other teams that would have loved that big day out. And I actually spoke to one of the managers of that team, and we had a balanced conversation about it, Mickey McCullough, who was involved with Lumen Christie, and I says, look, but if you won that competition, where does that cup go? There's 3 schools involved. The whole idea of your trophy cabinet and having it up there, and kids and parents coming in and looking at it and getting photographs with it, where does it go? Does it go to the school that had the most on the team? You know, so I just wouldn't be in favour of it personally.
Gerard, in the last episode, Patrick Gallagher from Antrim said that schools football schools competitions are better for development players than development squads in the county. He says that he was only ever able to play Mageean Cup, but if Belfast or Antrim had an A-level school, they would be a lot stronger than they are now. And if you look at Derry, a lot of Derry success came out of Mahara. Where would you agree with Patrick on that one, or not?
There's probably a balance in that now, that development squads weren't back in my time or Paul's time or long before that, whenever the school was the only nursery outside of the club. Now development squads are very much, I think, the under 15s or 16s will be starting again for next year in 2 or 3 weeks' time. Now, only a matter of getting together. This is what we want you doing over the winter. But I think development squads do have their part to play. With Patrick's example in Antrim, I think Antrim themselves need a school playing the McCrory Cup. I know St Mary's Belfast were close to it a time or two, but then, as Paul says, if you took 2 or 3 schools in Belfast, clubbed them together and put them in McCrory, is that really fair that they're playing against teams that aren't getting that same pool of players? In terms of the amalgamations, I would agree with them at club level, where your club doesn't have numbers, and that reason it's about participation, it's not about success. And our club went through it in Glenallen about 10 years ago. Our minors amalgamated with Ballieren, who are also in the parish, and they amalgamated for 2 or 3 years, whenever it suited both clubs as well. And then 1 or 2 years down the line, we had enough players of our own, and unfortunately for Ballieren they didn't, but we had to be selfish and make the call, we can't amalgamate now, because if we do, we're leaving 8 of our own players on the bench whenever we can field, and we sort of had to be selfish in that regard. But if a school's doing it, I think a school should only do it if they can't get numbers out. Now, if them schools in down that amalgamate together are fit to field separately, but they have to field a competition down, then so be it. But I think the amalgamation should only be in place for participation and not for driving on success in that way.
Okay. So you be for amalgamations at club level to a certain extent?
Well, even at schools level, if they didn't have the numbers, which is why they have it at club level. And I think you'll probably see it more in rural clubs as the years go down the line. Our under 16s this year played against 2 teams who were amalgamations, and I think that'll become all the more common. You know, especially with rural Ireland, the way it's going, you know, when people moving away into the cities and that sort of thing. But they only done it out of necessity. They didn't want it to make themselves into some super force that's going to win the under 16 championship. They done it because they wanted to give 15 fellas football.
But I suppose the bottom line is any school's football is good for clubs.
Any school's football at your level, you can improve and develop if you apply yourself. So this idea of coming together for greater success, in terms of balancing out with success and development, I still think you're better playing at your own school and at your own level. Okay.
I think we'll leave it there. We got into a lot of different points there. I think we've covered plenty. But Paul, thanks for coming in. Appreciate it.
No problem, thank you.
Gerard, thanks for coming as well.
No worries.